Night gathers, and now our hate watch begins. Hello, and welcome to the Night's Hate Watch, the podcast that asks what went wrong with the magnificent Game of Thrones, and why, and oh god, what do they think they're doing, why has no one stopped them? With the show's legacy secure, but its decline marked, we feel it is our solemn duty to give the final season a thorough and forensic walloping. We pledge to painstakingly extract and mercilessly chew on its every bit of rotten gristle to the bitter end. We do it out of love. Along the way, we'll be doing comprehensive spoiling and extensive swearing. As the watchers of the Balls Up, we also swear to give credit where it's due, to be harsh but fair, and to forever celebrate the sheer televisual might of seasons 1 through 5, the like of which we shall never see again. I'm Sarah B. My fellow watcher is my good friend, my sworn extension cord, the god of chips and gravy, John Tatlock.
Hello.
Hi. So, how was this episode for you?
This was significantly better than last week's, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That we can definitely say. There were moments that were not terrible. There were moments that were actually good. Was there anything truly awful in it? Of course there was.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
But we'll get to that in due course. But not bad, actually.
Yeah.
To be fair, or certainly went way above my expectations. I realised after we were talking about the writers last week, I didn't really know much about how this show is written, so I did a bit of a look into it. And it turns out, so it's always had a really small writer's room. And there's that way that American TV writing credits go, where essentially whoever had their hands on it last gets the writing credit, which I don't like, and my sort of trade union instincts cringe at. But, you know, it's nothing shady that this show is doing in particular. It's just the standard way it's done. So last week's atrocity was written by a chap called Dave Hill, who I like to imagine is just Dave Hill out of Slade. But and he's a guy who I think was a sort of assistant and got promoted to a writer sometime around the end of season 5 or whatever. So, hey, whatever. I don't know much else about him. This episode was written by Brian Cogman, who's one of the sort of OG seasons 1 to 4 writer's room chaps. And apparently one of the ways that it used to get written, or maybe still does, was they would often give whole character sections to one writer. So Brian Cogman essentially wrote everything that Arya did in, I think, season 4. Which explains a lot, I think. Suddenly, the characters felt much more in character. The dialogue, while still flawed, was vastly improved. And all kinds of things we'll get to. So, thumbs up for Brian Cogman. He did us a solid there, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. The thing is, the bar at this point is exceptionally low.
Yes.
And often my enjoyment comes from just the feeling of relief that something wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be, which is not like what you want in a telly show, but that's like, hey, I'll take it. You know, you do end up kind of clawing back what you can. But yeah, there were some bits of this that I actually sincerely and properly enjoyed, and also there was that poignancy of going, is this the last time that this show is going to make me feel this way? You know, is there going to be, and I hope not. I hope there is at least a moment in each episode from now on where I feel something, you know, that's all I ask, really. So yeah.
But from this point on, the rest of the season is to be written by the Chuckle Brothers. So
right,
who knows where that's going, you know.
Well, we had a good run of, you know, of this episode.
Yes.
This episode, obviously this final season is only 6 episodes, but they are all longer than usual. This one was 58 minutes, so just sort of a bit, it's not significantly longer than a normal episode would be. The next episode is actually going to be the longest ever at 82 minutes.
Oh my!
So let's make sure we've got all the requisite cushions and and substances we need to get through that. And then the next one is 78 minutes, and the final two are going to be 80 each. So the thing is, there's a lot to cram. There's a lot to cram in. But is this a good idea? Is it good value to have episodes of this length, do you think?
Well, it's strange, isn't it? I mean, the way increasingly the show uses its time is I don't know. We've not seen this next batch of episodes. They might be really good, But it seems like if you think back to we were talking about before the show, the episode way back, I think, is it the end of season 4, where Tyrion is in jail awaiting his trial by combat fate. And Jaime visits him in the cell, and they have a conversation about their cousin when they were little kids who had a learning disability and used to just spend all day crushing beetles in the courtyard. And that conversation is 6 minutes of like a 50-minute episode. So it's getting on for 15% of the episode.
Yeah.
And it's 2 people in a room, no special effects, just a couple of chaps talking. And it's mesmerizing and it's brilliant. It's wonderful. And I'm sure all regular viewers of Game of Thrones remember it as a real high point. Now, it just doesn't do that anymore. There's a bit in this episode where they actually have a scene that breathes a bit, which was very, very welcome. Yeah. Mostly what they're doing, now that the episodes are getting long, it seems they're getting long so they can cram them with a huge number of like 30-second bits.
Yeah.
And this episode was guilty of bits.
Yeah.
There was just, we've got to have that in. We're going to have that in. We're going to have that in. We're going to have that in. And just because they've got this list of things that must be there, they all end up, you've got 100 underdeveloped bits rather than one really meaty, interesting, intelligent scene,
Yeah.
And that Beatles scene is I'd hold that up as the pinnacle of, it's not the best bit of the show or anything as such, but it shows what you can do with good performance of intelligent writing.
The thing about that bit is that, yes, I think it is a high point, but moreover, it contains the whole show. It's, like you said, it's 2 guys just talking about, but that's like the existential heart of the whole show in this kind of terrifying window into the darkness of it, where it's like, what? And it's somebody grappling with the idea that people are just cruel for no reason and it will never end. And that's all there is. And it's like, oh, holy shit. And I was really shaken by that scene because it's not even an anecdote that has a conclusion. It just peters out. And he just says, why is it? And it's a question that he's never had the answer to, and he'll never have the answer to it. And it's just, the whole point is that it's this symbolic thing about why people will just kill because they can. And yeah, it's shocking, in this very low key and kind of gentle way, which is extraordinary. But yeah, it has that lovely detail where at the start of the anecdote, Tyrion picks up a beetle, and you kind of forget that he's got it, and then at the end of the anecdote, he puts the beetle down, still alive. Yeah, lets it go.
So he's signifying that he's in rebellion against the universe in this sense.
Yeah.
So what a glorious little thing. And they did that literally, 2 guys in a room with a beetle.
That's holy shit. How do human beings do that? That's extraordinary. Yeah. But this is the thing about the show, is it's always used time. And this is kind of the essence of drama, really. If you've got an hour or you've got 28 minutes or however long you've got to tell a story or to tell part of a story, you've got to, there's infinite ways you can slice it. But also, I kind of touched on this last time, that when you're really on it, you can make you can bend time, you can stretch it, you can compress it, you can give people an experience that is where you're not paying attention to what time it is or how long you've been sitting there or whether your ass has gone to sleep or not. It's not really relevant. The Red Wedding episode, the very end, where Catelyn has Walder Frey's wife at knife point, Roose Bolton kills Robb, Catelyn screams, slits the girl's throat, and then one of the Freys slits her throat. When I remembered that after I'd first seen it, it all happened really, in my memory, it all happened kind of instantly. Like those three things happened like bum, bum, bum.
Yeah.
And then when I watched it again, there's this long pause where the girl has fallen dead to the floor and Catelyn just kind of stands there sort of in this state of catatonia for like a few seconds. And then the guy comes and sits her throat. But yeah, I was astonished to see this because somehow my brain had compressed it all. I suppose I was just in such a state of like, oh fuck, that it just all kind of crammed together.
It's a really nice bit of kind of clever visual pathos, that, isn't it? Because Catelyn goes into a state of shock and cues you to do the same.
Yeah.
It's rather brilliant, you know.
Yeah, it really is. But then there's other episodes where you feel like you've been through a war at the end of it and it's been relentless and you've just been pummeled for what feels like a really long time. So, yeah, these are the ways that you need to use your time. So, yeah, whereas now, as you say, there's kind of lots of bits. And I am, the concern is that they're going to just kind of try to... I don't necessarily want them to tie up every loose end, but I imagine that's what they're going to try to do, so comprehensively and encyclopedically fix everything.
Yes, and I think as well, I mean, we talked about last week about things that, we'll get into this when we start talking about the episode, but things that are there for fan reaction and social media reaction. And one of the frustrating things is they're not, there's a bunch of stuff that's in here that's not here to tie up plot strands, but it's just in there to give you a bit of, oh, well, before this show ends, don't you want to see Jimmy Scrambles again? Here's Jimmy, and he pops up and then he goes away. And it's just like, well, what's the point of any of this stuff? There's an absolute Jimmy Scrambles in this episode, but I'll get to that.
To be fair, Jimmy Scrambles, what a stand-up guy. Love that guy.
Great memes.
So before we get into this latest episode, we thought we'd do a quick roundup of the cross-promotional Game of Thrones bollocks we've seen this week, given the cultural and corporate fuckernaut it has become. We'll call this section Valor Don't Buy This, or All Men Must Buy. So, John, what shareable synergy have you experienced this week?
Well, there was a particularly choice bit of bricks and clicks cross-promotional brand synergy from Game of Thrones and Fender. And this made me so disproportionately angry that I was just incensed. It's like, I'm a guitar player. It takes two things I really like, the electric guitar and Game of Thrones, and combines them into something that I absolutely despise. Now, I'm going to keep this brief because this isn't a Guitar Players podcast, but essentially, which one is it? Is it Benioff? It's not both of them.
It's Weiss.
Right.
Is it Weiss or Weiss? I really should know this, but anyway, that guy. Yes, it's DB Weiss.
So apparently he's a guitar player. He's always been a guitar fan, and he's gone in and co-designed a set of limited edition guitars with Fender, which, as a side note, well, that's very nice that he thought he had time to do that.
Yeah. Excuse me, can you just, don't you have some writing to do? Don't you have some thinking and some writing to do?
Yeah. But that aside, these are insanely... look, Fender stay in business partly by doing this. The standard guitars are really, really good quality, affordable, working instruments that for working musicians, and they're dead good.
Right.
And part of the way they stay in business is by making wildly overpriced limited edition bullshit, which in the world of, guitar players, we call them like dentist guitars or lawyer guitars, and nothing against dentists or lawyers, but you know what we mean. These aren't instruments
hobbyist kind of.
Well, worse than hobbyists. They're like show ponies, is what they
like
are.
display. They're going to be displayed more than played.
Yeah, absolutely. And these things are utterly horrible. They've got there's a House Lannister Fender Jaguar, a House Stark Stratocaster, I think, and a House Targaryen Telecaster.
Well, they've got an idea about why, they've obviously thought it all through, and it's like, this is the kind of guitar a Stark would play. We should say, by the way, this is like a 9-minute YouTube promo.
Yeah. Featuring Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine, Nuno Bettencourt of Extreme, and who's the other guy? The guy Scott Ian from Anthrax.
Yeah.
And DB Weiss just thrashing out actually a pretty tasty kind of stoner rock version of the Game of Thrones theme tune. Which, hey, I guess, whatever. I'm sure it was a nice day out. Here's what annoyed me about it, right? And the sort of hubris that kicks in, the cocaine hot tub factor of DB Weiss just thinking, I can do anything now, I can design a guitar. It's like, I don't know, if you're going to do this kind of stuff, get the people who do like the titles and the costumes and the sets or whatever to do the visual design. Because again, you don't bloody understand your own show, do you? Now, I'm going to keep this brief, but Leo Fender was one of the great design geniuses of the 20th century. The Fender Telecaster, designed in 1948, and the Fender Stratocaster, designed in 1951, have both been in continuous production ever since, to exactly the same design, more or less. They've improved some things about manufacturing, but the design is the same. You know why? Because he completely nailed it, right? It's a brilliant thing, and they are highly robust, highly functional, very versatile, but extremely elegant and simple designs, right?
Yes.
And so the House Stark Fender guitar has all these bloody bits of metal and like wolf's heads and things on it and all these Ponzi carvings and stuff. This really annoyed me. You know what the House Stark Fender Telecaster would look like? It would look like a Fender Telecaster. It would be a completely functional, simple tool, and that would be it, right? Yeah. Then there's the House Lannister Fender Jaguar. It's actually got etched gold leaf all over it. I don't even want to know what this thing costs, right? But again, you don't understand your own character. This is the thing about the Lannisters is there's a kind of class thing, and they're not gaudy. They're old money. They're posh.
Yeah.
So they're not that kind of ostentatious.
No.
So it's like they wouldn't have this thing. This is like the gold-plated etched Fender Strat. Tormund would play that. So
well, yeah. It's the thing is that they're going to say, well, it's not. It's just an homage to the thing, and it's not really to do with the show. It's just because people love it and whatever else. But it's like, who is it for? The dentists and whatever who are going to buy it. Like, what kind of music realistically is going to be made on these extraordinarily expensive, gaudy guitars?
Yeah. Imagine walking into a venue and a band came on with these things. I mean, you'd weep.
Yeah.
You'd weep.
You'd leave, I think, immediately. There's going to be some very earnest kind of folk metal made on these things, isn't there, really?
Oh, God.
I think. What I guess you may also have seen this is that there was... I kind of love this, actually. You have to laugh. There was an HBO Sesame Street crossover kind of PSA. Is that what you call it? Where... Basically, Tyrion and Cersei are arguing as they do, and then they get a visit from Elmo. And I promise I'm not making this up. Elmo pops up in a little tiny Muppet kind of helmet and knight and armor, and teaches them about mutual respect. And it's and it's kind of wonderful. Apart from anything else, this is the most animated and engaged I've seen Lena Headey for a couple of seasons.
Yes, she was into it, wasn't she? Yeah.
She's actually into it, and it's just. I mean, I love obviously Sesame Street, another one along with Game of Thrones, one of the greatest achievements of humankind, and yeah, it's kind of charming and ridiculous, and I'll let them have it. To be honest, I don't know who it's for. I mean, I guess it's for parents who watch. There's going to be quite a crossover there between parents who watch Sesame Street and Game of Thrones.
I suppose so. I did wonder about that. Yeah, oh, Dad, that looks fun. Can we watch that tonight?
Yeah. No, son. Sorry. There's too much. Maybe when you're older. But I think that's a message we can all get behind, and yeah, I think they should just add Elmo into every scene at this point.
I think they should just dig into it, just lean all the way into that, and like Bran and confronts the Night King in the God's Wood, and he rips his face mask off, and it's Elmo.
Oh my God! What if not? Oh God! I'm just having terrible thoughts now. But what if the Night King got to Cookie Monster? Just sit with that for a minute. They really would be fucked.
Oh wow.
So I realised last week, in our eagerness to get into the episode, we kind of skipped over the revamped opening sequence, didn't we?
We did.
It's been completely the opening sequence, which has always been incredible and has changed once a season anyway. They have according to, I mean, it changes from episode to episode actually, depending on.
Yes, it takes a different path through the map, doesn't it? According to what's going to happen in the episode.
Yeah, and then you'll see, and it was so exciting. It was one of my favourite things about it, is to just see, oh, that's a place we haven't seen before, and there's almost a little bit of, because like the first time that Pike turns up, and you've probably heard, you have some context for what Pike is and where it is and who lives there, but you haven't seen it before. It's like, oh, we're going to see Pike. This is amazing.
Yeah.
This time they've kind of gone more abstract and more sort of it's like going under the map. It's kind of zooming kind of into the crypts and under the streets and into the sort of bowels of it, isn't it?
Yes. Although it is also doing a storytelling thing, which is it's showing you how far the Night King and his army have come, isn't it?
Is that what it's?
Did you notice that?
Is that what it's doing?
So it's like sort of tiled, and tiles flip over and turn blue.
Yeah,
and that's where he's up to. So even though I figured that out because a character explains where they ran into him and where he must be now, and it kind of corresponds with the thing. So it's showing you the advance, yeah.
Amazing. You see, I actually didn't pick up on that. That's amazing.
Nice,
but part of the reason why I didn't pick up on that is because I can't actually watch this opening sequence without feeling nauseous. I can't watch it now because it's it's this kind of vertiginous, drone-like zooming and twisting, and I actually have to avert my eyes now because I don't want to start the episode just feeling like I need to, have some sort of stomach settling remedy. I can't do it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, since we're into it, I kind of want to. I don't want to just moan about everything, but I do have to say I did kind of go, oh God, what's it doing? Because obviously it's always been this computer generated thing, but it's highly stylized and whatnot, and it's fine. But I think now they're doing all this kind of like swooping down pipes and going underground. It's just suddenly it really feels like a kind of slightly overcooked PlayStation 2 video game intro,
Well, it's quite telling, isn't it, really? It is kind of saying, here's the experience you're going to have. This is what we're prioritizing, is the action and the, that kind of, it's like a roller coaster. You're going to be really excited about this. It's very flat. It's quite flashy.
Yes.
Which it's never needed to be. This was part of the thing about the original opening sequence. It's very sort of stately and just kind of unrolls in this very elegant way. And I do. There is a certain irony in it kind of plunging into these depths when the show has actually got, is now as shallow as more shallow than it's ever been.
Yeah, it's its own Disneyland ride.
Yeah. Oh my God, I wonder if they're going to do that. Because, I mean,
Of course they're going to do it.
This would be the other way around. Obviously, thinking of Pirates of the Caribbean, that was based on a ride, which should have been terrible, but actually was great. But yeah, God, imagine that, a Game of Thrones. I mean, you would go, though, wouldn't you? If there was a Game of Thrones theme park, if they did it right, you'd go the fuck out of that.
Of course, yeah.
You know,
and it would be awful in a brilliant way.
Yeah, that's what you want. Awfulness in a brilliant way. To the latest episode. As always, a friendly warning. If you still sincerely enjoy Game of Thrones, please avert your ears from what we're about to say. We really don't want to ruin it for you. Right, without further ado, let's get into it. Season 8, Episode 2, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. This was an episode full of foreboding, in which all the gang hang out at Winterfell and try to get pissed before the dead guys arrive. There's tension between Dany and Jaime, Dany and Sansa, Dany and Tyrion, Dany and Jon, Jon and Sam, Arya and the Hound, Tormund and Brienne, and Jorah and Lyanna. And someone has some sex. Hooray! So this kind of calm before the storm episode, it's a little bit like Blackwater, where it's everyone knows that shit's going to go down soon, and it's kind of the waiting for that and what people say to each other in that situation. It's quite a sort of rich seam, isn't it?
Yes, it's nicely paced. It's gives us a lot of room for character stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that happened that felt like it kind of should have happened last week, or was done badly last week and was done well this week. You know, like basically they reran Arya and the Hound's reunion better.
Yeah.
You know, and things like that.
Yeah, I quite like, in general, this kind of episode where I wouldn't have had much hope that they could pull this off at this stage. But they kind of did, and you know, I felt some feelings. I think up to 4 feelings, which is like, I believe this is going to be the feel count to beat for this season.
My notes have emotion 1, emotion 2. They're quite close together. Then there's quite a long gap, but then there's emotion 3.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, let's see if we felt the same kind of feelings and, you know, with the same intensity. So, we opened with Jaime Lannister standing before Daenerys in the Great Hall at Winterfell to face the Queen's justice for murdering her father. She reads him the Riot Act for about 10 seconds before everyone agrees that it's fine given the circumstances, but not before Bran gets in a little passive-aggressive dig. Yeah, this seems like this is going to be... This is kind of a big moment, isn't it? But it sort of comes to nothing.
I feel like this is one of the things with them just cramming the rest of the story into 6 episodes. It sort of feels like back in the good old days, this would have been a thing. We'd have got an episode out of this, you know. Jaime would have arrived. They'd have stuck him in the cells. There'd have been a lot of politicking and debate about the whys and wherefores of this. You know, we've done this, hadn't we? We had Jaime being captured by Robb Stark. That was a thing. There was a couple of hours in that. You know, Tyrion being in the cells. There was a span of time and things that happened and possibilities and tensions and so on. And this was just like, okay, well, he's arrived. Everyone's upset. We can't have them just go, oh, hey, bro. Good to see you. So we've got to have some conflict, but we've got to get that conflict resolved immediately. So it was okay, but it just seemed a bit like, you know, like Daenerys literally goes from "I want to have you killed" to "Oh, hey, what the hell? Join the gang."
Fine. Yeah.
You know.
The thing is, it does suck the drama out of it slightly, knowing that everyone is aware now of what's at stake and what's going to happen. And so all our petty differences have to be put aside. So in that way, it is predictable. But you can still, work it a bit. It's like there's...
Well, also, that's an interesting human thing that's to be explored, is our capacity to not rise to the occasion and get obsessed in petty details in the face of oncoming disaster and so on. There's some dramatic meat there that they chose not to pick from the bone.
Yeah. Well, that should be, all the characters, some of them have got it absolutely sorted out. Some of them, maybe not. And Dany might be one of those ones, it's like, because everything's kind of on her. And
she's still banging on about the throne, which is like, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is the thing. I think this is there's some bad character stuff there where I'm fine with the idea that maybe her ego is going to get the better of her. We don't know, and we should be invested in this. As like, God, should we really be putting all our eggs in that basket in terms of after this is all done, if anybody's left, who's going to rule? And we've been quite solidly behind Dany for quite a long time, but you can't. They could certainly have made a bit more of that. So there's and then so basically Brienne vouches for Jaime, and Sansa is moved, says, yeah, cool. John is a bit preoccupied, says, sure, whatever, don't really give a shit. Kit Harington, who I'm fond of, doesn't have the biggest range, but he does do a very good impression in this scene of a man with other shit on his mind. I would say.
Yeah. I mean, obviously they just have to wrap that up quite neatly, don't they? And effectively the way they do that is by everyone turns to Jon and Jon goes, whatever, dude. And that's the end of that.
And Dany says, very well. There is a frustration. It's like they kind of put things in where you don't need things. And then when you want some things to be there, there's no things. There's nothing that, there's going to be some more. This is the man who killed her father. And we all know that she understands that her father was a monster, but she doesn't actually know the full story. In fact, nobody does except Brienne. So would this be the moment where that would come out? Probably not. But there's no sense of it being there. I mean, I guess that could be if Jaime was really in fear of his life at this point. He's got a trump card, hasn't he? He's like, look, dude was going to kill everyone. I had to do it.
Yeah, they just didn't really dig into any of the heft here, did they?
No.
It was functional stuff. We have to establish that he's allowed to be here, so let's just get that done.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way. And
that's not particularly interesting. Like at this stage, it's like, well, I know you're not going to kill him. Either give us I guess it's doing too much moving pieces around the board. It's like, well, I know it's going to be okay. He's going to join the army. I've seen the trailer. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're like overfilling in this fairly mundane stuff, but at the same time not digging into anything meaningful.
Yeah,
I thought it was a strange way to open it. Do you know what I mean? Because I thought it would have been much more interesting to open with him talking to Bran, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Speaking of Bran, Bran does a little "I know what you did." 8 summers ago bit, and quotes Jaime's line at him, which and obviously Jaime shits it slightly at this because we know that Bran knows because Bran now knows everything.
Yeah.
And Jaime knows that he knows, and there's all that. But what we also know is Bran has this grand sweeping overview of everything and is not going to start shit. So we already know that. So there's kind of there's no tension in that either, really.
No, but it's okay. You can tell it's poetry because it rhymes. It's whatever. Tie it up with a nice little bow. I'm all right with that. It's a little writerly flourish that I thought was nice.
Fair enough. I bet they hugged themselves with but I bet Brian gave himself a little gleeful hug at that point, but that's fine. He's allowed. Again, this is a line of dialogue from the first episode, which is if you're going to do a callback, that's how you would do it.
Yes, and we talked about this a lot last week, didn't we? I like all this tying up. It's arguably somewhat on the nose, but it's fine. It's perfectly
That's
nice.
okay. It stacks up. It's all right. So, and then there's a.
I mean, in a way, I mean, you're right. You know that Bran is not going to mess with Jaime, but also Bran is definitely signifying that he is not to be messed with. Do you know what I mean? He's he's letting him know, like, hey, look, I'm essentially like a god now, so just bear that in mind.
I did actually. I talked a lot of shit about Bran last time, and I kind of, it's making more sense to me now, and I'm better with it, because he's kind of, I feel like he's really got into it now. He's got that sort of tone. He's this very sort of far away presence. And I think I think it works.
Do you see what I mean about the actor's performance? I think you were sort of like, well, there's no character to perform, and he's not really doing anything. But I was like, oh no, he's got something going on. I think.
Yeah.
Almost amused by these kind of petty human affairs in a way. It's a nice.
Yeah. That's what you want, isn't it? Is that he knows that there's shit at stake. But I mean, everything is at stake, as we'll get into later. But he has got a certain presence that I wasn't quite giving him credit for last time. So well done, that guy. Yeah. So what happens then? There's a lot of shuffling about as everyone gets up and leaves in a very shuffly kind of way. It's like the meeting's over, and everyone gets up and stretches their legs. Yeah,
it was really weird, that, isn't it? I was expecting someone to go, who wants a brew?
Yeah.
coming for a fag.
Yeah. Everyone goes for a fag break. Yeah. And so Dany then rounds on Tyrion. Because it's turned out that, Jaime explains that Cersei was full of shit, never intended to send her armies north. Dany then has a go at Tyrion and says, well, you're either a traitor or a fool. Varys and Jorah are sort of trailing them, looking sheepish. So there is now some bother between Dany and Tyrion. I'm not. Again, my problem with, there's a lot of that in this episode, is just kind of manufactured. I'd said this last time, I think. It's just conflict for conflict's sake. Just any way you can put some, just bung it in there. I think it points to a bigger problem, which is a kind of rolling. There's a sort of amnesia thing that happens where it's like characters. There's a lot of sort of relationship work that has happened, a lot of stuff that's happened between two characters that just kind of suddenly doesn't count, and they kind of they're sort of back at an earlier point in their relationship. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, this is like the first few times they met again, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, speaking of Dany threatening to kill people and then deciding not to, that was done brilliantly between her and Tyrion, where they sit and have a drink, and she's like, I'm considering whether or not to cut your head off. And he's like, well, you'd be within your rights to do that. Maybe don't, because I can help you, but nah. And she kind of, they have this exchange, and she's sort of very steely about it. And then you see her make the decision, and she actually just says, I'm not going to kill you. And there's this, there's a sort of 5-minute bit where you think she might actually throw him back in the cells. But yeah, anyway, I feel like Dany and Tyrion are further on than that at this point. Yeah, and they do this bit here, but like very, very soon after in this episode, suddenly with no, she's saying how important he is and he can't go out on the battlefield. He's essential to her. So they set up this fake conflict, and then that's it.
And they sort it out. And it takes Jorah, because Jorah tells her to do that, which, again, surely she would figure this out for herself. And in any case, Tyrion wouldn't. Why would Tyrion offer to fight? If Tyrion understands his value, which surely he does at this point, why is he going to, suggest that he'll go out and fight? I mean, yes.
I've got an answer for that, I think. I thought that was good character stuff.
Okay.
Deep down, he thinks they're all going to die. He thinks this is doomed.
Yeah.
And he wants to be brave and honourable. He wants his last action in life to be something to be proud of. I thought because that's what's happened to his character, isn't it? He's become. Well, it's got that lovely line, isn't it? I mean, this is much later on in the episode, but what's the line? It's a great, great line. The perils of self-betterment.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
he says, I went and got myself a conscience, and it's kind of ruined everything. You know.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
so that's
no,
what
a
I
good
think's
line.
going on there. You know, he wants to stand with the other people who are going to die. You know.
Okay. No, fair enough. No, I'm convinced. Actually, I didn't. I thought that was a bum note, but I retract. I retract
Okay.
this bum. I'll save it. I'll put it somewhere else.
Yes. But all of
Right.
this stuff that we've been talking about, this feels like this is, like I say, it's moving pieces around, and it's before we get into the meat of the episode, which I think we're about to, and things actually start looking up, don't they?
So what you're saying, John, is that we're getting to the meat of the episode where things are looking up. Sorry, it's because next what we're going to do is go to the foundry where Gendry is very suggestively dipping a steel rod into a bucket. And I'm afraid, it's terrible. It's not that I have no capacity to take this seriously anymore, but come on. Look what you're doing.
I thought this was all quite fun, actually. Now, as we were saying earlier, this is Brian Cogman writing, and he was the main writer for the character of Arya for ages.
Yeah.
And I feel like so in this first scene, it's not played quite as well as it is in the later scene with them. But I think he's setting this thing up, which is like, so everyone's had a weird time of it over the last 8 years, but Arya's had a particularly weird time of it. She's not had a childhood. She's spent all her time in the company of people 4 times her age, these crazy battle-hardened nutcases. Just been in really, really weird situations and so on. So she's got really like malformed social skills.
Yes.
And one of the things that she is utterly, unbelievably bad at is flirting. And she's doing that in this scene really, really badly with Gendry, who is similarly dysfunctional. and so they just do this really bad job of like flirting with each other. And I don't know, I think that was deliberate, and I thought it was quite nicely done. I thought it was okay.
Yeah. No, you are correct. Yeah, damn it, you're right about so many things. Where I just want to put the boot in, and you're like, no, save your boot.
It's clunky. It's clunky. I'll tell you what. It's more like once I'd seen a bit of the later stuff, it made me revise my opinion of this scene. While this scene was happening, I was like, this is a bit bantsy. You know.
Yeah. Well, they get into that. You know, it's because they discuss about they talk about the White Walkers. So you've seen the White Walkers. What do they like to fight? And they have this bit where it's like, what are they like? Bad, really bad. Ooh, are they really bad? Yes, they're really bad. And
But that they hang a lampshade on that, don't they? Because she draws attention to how bad that writing is.
yes, so there is
Come on,
that.
surely you could describe it better than that.
Is that the best you can do? But yeah, it's. I mean, I'm going to say at this point, as I will, you know, occasionally, just how great it looks. I love the scenes in the Foundry are so gorgeous to look at because there's all the kind of steam and it's all sweaty and kind of the light is really you know kind of glinting off people's skin. It's great.
Yeah, your man who plays Gendry's got an excellent face for that.
Oh yeah. And you know he's so he's there all kind of sweaty and hot and bothered and stuff.
Yeah, he's absolutely like a 90s Diet Coke advert guy, isn't he?
Yeah. Again, that's probably I'm fine with that. I'm fine with stuff being a little bit on the nose. Sometimes the nose is there. You got to go for it. It's fine. But he's the way that they've shot this. He's almost like in sepia tone. He sort of looks like he kind of looks like a miner in a photo from the 30s or something.
Yes. Yeah.
He just looks amazing. So yeah.
Yeah.
Now we're in the Godswood, where Jaime says sorry and all that to Bran, who is pretty understanding about it, really. So yeah, this was a scene that I guess had to happen. And as predicted, Bran kind of says it ain't no thing. Explains very neatly and correctly that, well, if you hadn't pushed me out the window, I wouldn't have become what I needed to be, and you wouldn't have become what you needed to be.
Yeah,
which is quite neat, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's exactly what we said we thought it was going to be, isn't it? But that's fine.
Yeah,
It's doing what it should. And I liked it has that little. It sort of added a little note to Bran's weird non-character, where, like I was saying before, he's got this air of kind of amused detachment from it all. And that nice little line, he says, "Well, aren't you even angry with me?" And he says, "I'm not angry with anyone." You know, it's like I'm not. Anger's not a thing to me. You know.
Yeah,
I thought that was quite nice. You know.
No, it's nice, isn't it? Because there have been various moments in the show where, like huge things come to nothing, or they just stop, or it's not a thing anymore. And this is kind of one of those in a really good way. Just like all of that, like, oh my God, what the fuck is going to happen if anybody finds out about this? And it's not even, doesn't matter. In the same way that, you know, when Cersei, you know, the big secret is that, you know, Jaime and Cersei were doing it. And that's, you know, so many people have died and so much has happened because of that, the necessity to keep that secret. And then Cersei just tells Tywin Lannister, it's true, I've been fucking him this whole time. And the kind of shock of a moment like that, it's like, oh my God, but this is an important secret. It's just kind of, it's not anymore. You know, it's kind of one of those notes.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I suspect that comes from, you know, George R.R. Martin has a good sense of how history actually unfolds. And the way history unfolds is shit happens, you know, and then some other shit happens. And then you might have had this plan, but there was a kind of hole in your plan that enabled this other thing that nobody was even thinking about to kind of happen. And on it goes, you know. History doesn't have a nice novelistic structure. So he's made a clever novelistic device out of that. Yeah. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's...
But so the thing, Jaime pushed Bran out the window, that got the whole thing underway. It does matter, but in a completely different way to it seemed to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that also kind of speaks to the deep moral kind of ambiguity, the way that this show has, or the story has really dug deep into what it means to be moral and what it means to be good, and what, you know, because this is a terrible act, but also maybe that will be the thing that saves the world.
Yes.
It's a bit kind of, you know, would you kill baby Hitler? It's that kind of thing, isn't it? Like, you know, but sort of turned on its head. Like, would you push a small boy out of the window if it meant that everything would work out okay in the end? You know? Yeah. I don't know any other show that would ask that of its audience.
No,
but there you go.
No.
So, staying with Jaime, the former Golden Lion hangs out with his little brother, and they rap about the new queen and the old queen. There's kind of a nice or awkward bit here where Tyrion and Jaime are standing there going, so, here we are.
Yes.
Here we are.
Quite.
Together again.
So.
Isn't it? And it goes on for quite a while.
How have you been?
So, indeed.
I couldn't decide whether I liked this or not, I think.
Yeah, no, nor I. Because... The thing is that sometimes the show, like I said, it's so self-conscious at this point, and I don't think even the best writers can really escape that. And it is going to sort of bleed into the show. I don't know. I feel like they could have, like I said last time, I think there's lots of bits where no dialogue would do better than any dialogue you could choose. Because once you see the face of Jaime Lannister and you see the face of Tyrion and you see them together, and you know, and you have watched this and all that stuff is still in your memory and you can bring it yourself. And there is a nice thing where there's a nice kind of back and forth between an audience and a show where the writers know what you know and they can just activate it, basically. And then you don't feel like you're being patronised because it's like, yes, no, I know what's going on here. So maybe it's one of those, it's like pull it back a bit. You know, a lot of this could really benefit from just a bit of pulling back and letting the audience do the work.
Yeah, like they do. Tyrion plays one of the hits, doesn't he? He does that zinger about "I always thought I'd die with a belly full of wine."
Die at the age of 80 with a belly full of wine and a girl's mouth around my cock. And Jaime joins in because even the cat. But you see, that was a bum note for me because
it's like in the world they know the catchphrases. That's bizarre, isn't it? It's like Jaime's been watching it.
Yeah, I know. Jamie's been watching that. All the characters have been watching the show, like with a beer, and going, "I don't think he'd say that. What the fuck is he doing?" Yeah, my issue with that. What is he doing?
Yeah. Oh god, yeah.
I would. You know what? That would be great. Beavis and Butthead watch Game of Thrones. Fucking hell.
Isn't that essentially what we're doing right now?
Yeah. It is, yeah. So the thing is, Tyrion, right? As I know him, Tyrion, as I know him, is a wit.
Yes.
Okay, he has a sharp mind.
Yeah, he wouldn't use an old gag.
You know, it's like there was a time there, because they've always done callbacks in this show, but they used to be a lot more subtle and less clanging than they are. And I would forget, I felt like they'd earned it, like, because the God of Tits and Wine thing, which we all know and love. Actually, why? Yeah, no, that is not a good T-shirt. If that T-shirt exists, men, do not buy it, okay? Your friends are not going to forgive you for it. The first time you hear that line, it's Tyrion and Varys talking about the various gods and how appalling they are. And Tyrion says, "The fire god wants his victims burned. The drowned god wants them drowned. Why are all the gods such vicious cunts? Where is the god of tits and wine?" And it's lovely. It's a great line. And then when he's at his wedding, absolutely pissed to hell, he actually and Tywin is nagging him to go and fuck Sansa. He's sitting there and just goes, "I am the god of tits and wine," and I had a slight blanch at that, but I was like, fair enough, you're allowed.
Well, that seemed like there you go. That's a drunk guy rambling, remembering something, or it's okay. I mean, I know what you mean. He's obviously they're already into playing the hits at that point, and. Yeah. But that, as a character thing, that's fair enough. That's Tyrion is. It's fair enough. He is one thing that he also is. He can be quite pleased with himself. He can be quite in a forgivable way. In a kind of, this is a man who has really been kind of brutalized his whole life. It's fair enough. It's a little bit of like, I said an amusing thing. I've amused myself. Yeah. And also it's often quite lonely because he is the smartest guy in the room. Other people kind of don't get it. So, of course, that's a nice thing. But the whole "I want to die at the age of 80 with a belly full of wine," and Jaime knowing it is a bit... I don't know. I guess what it's meant to be is just an affectionate thing that shows that how far they go back and how well they know each other. It did land a bit heavily, this one for me. But, the worst thing though, but never mind that. The worst thing is that then he starts to sort of fantasize about, well, we're all going to die, but then maybe after I die, I'll stroll down to King's Landing and rip Cersei apart. And I was like, really? Is that him? And he has a little kind of smile about that, and I was like, I don't know about this. Yeah, it was a funny scene, wasn't it? Yeah, it was odd. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny this episode. There's we're getting to kind of the good stuff. Most of the good stuff I think is later on. But there
was actually now you're talking it through. There's no point to this scene, is there? It's not doing anything.
Not really. No.
But it's not only is it not doing anything in terms of plot or getting us anywhere. That's fine, but it's not doing any character development either. It's not doing anything. And again, it goes back to that thing that we started with, that the weird way in which this show uses its time, because it races through other really important things, and then it's just got this flabby chat, Do you know? It's almost like it's just here to give them a certain allotted amount of screen time or something.
Yeah. I can imagine that you really lose your bearings with a show at this point in that way. There is going to be a kind of scrabbling about going, well, we've got to show this, but why? But never mind, we just got to do it anyway. And yeah, I think there's quite a lot of that kind of flailing about.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that coming up. Some more of that.
Oh yeah, lots of flailing. So yeah, they're watching the people sort of training and preparing for the oncoming army. And the funny thing that happened here is there's a nice kind of just people kind of fighting a bit and putting up fences and whatnot. And it's terrible. The part of my brain that filters everything through Brexit was like, they're going to be fine. They're taking this seriously. They've gone, right, we've got a plan. We've taken on board the nature of the problem. We're organised. We're putting all our energies into getting ready. We're prudent. We've got skilled people on it. This is fine. And to be honest, that is a real world thing that has kind of taken a bit of the tension out of it for me. It's like, this is fine. Look, they're preparing. This is good.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got.
Do you know what I mean?
They don't know what a real problem is. these people. Yeah. God, lived in Winterfell. That's nothing. They want to try living in England. Oh God.
So, well, Jamie is really putting in a shift this episode because he now goes to have a chat with his old pal Brienne, and then they have a stupid argument, even though that's not their relationship anymore. What did you think of this bit?
I can see what they were trying to do. I suppose I'd say no, because they do this thing, isn't it? It's like, he's really trying to treat her with some respect, and she's surprised at this, and it's weird. And she says, we've never talked for this long without you insulting me." I see what they're getting at. He's very much a changed man. He's completely changed how he perceives her, and he now has great admiration for her. And
right, they have established that well and truly. They've locked, as far as I'm concerned, they have locked that down quite some time ago. There is mutual respect. He knows it, she knows it. They've literally just reaffirmed it a couple of scenes ago, where she stood up for him and said, "This guy's all right."
Yeah,
and that pass between they've. Like, is Brienne still... I don't buy that Brienne at this point is still waiting for Jamie to take the piss.
No,
because
if you look at how
that's ages ago.
If you look at how this is structured, because it's 3 scenes on the trot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jamie talks to Bran, Jamie talks to Tyrion, Jamie talks to Brienne, and they've obviously got this notion of it's like Jamie's little redemption tour.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one of those things. Okay, that sounds like a good concept. Let's try and work into that. So yeah, we've got to have this thing where it's resolved between him and Bran. That's a good, worthwhile bit. Okay, then we have him go and talk to Tyrion. Everything's fine with Tyrion, so we can't think of anything for him to do. Okay, well, go and talk to Brienne. Everything's fine with Brienne. We can't really think of anything to do, and it's that thing that they keep doing is rather than going, "Oh, okay, that idea just doesn't work. Let's just throw it away." They just bloody well stick with the idea. Doesn't matter that it sucks. We've got our list of bullet points, and they're all going in, no matter what. And I think this is somewhat to do with, this ties into the thing we were talking about extended episode lengths and so on. It leads to this horrible lack of discipline, I think it's actually, there's something actually really good about constraints, and about, I mean, I worked in my other work as a recording engineer. I worked with a band on a record that they really wanted to get out on vinyl. Now, the thing about vinyl is, if you go much over 21 minutes aside, the quality really starts to deteriorate. So we had this, absolute, it's got to be about 42 minutes max. And it ended up with like an agonizing, but we got these other two songs and they're great. And they're, we've got to choose, we've got to lose. We had to lose like 8 minutes from the 50 minutes that we had. And it definitely made it better. It was really hard to decide, but it definitely made it better, And I think that applies to everything. And it's interesting how when they didn't have these extended episodes, they would do much more long and involved scenes. Whereas now they've got these extended run times, they just kind of go, and we can whack in that bit, and we can have this 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 bit. And there's no discipline, And really this whole last chunk should have been Jamie talks to Bran and on we trot. That whole little mini triptych of scenes with Jamie is mostly pointless.
Now we're with Jorah Mormont, who's got some sage counsel for his queen. He advises her to forgive Tyrion, her errant hand, even though he wishes that he himself were that hand. So this is the bit that we mentioned where Dany wasn't going to work this out for herself, apparently. So Jorah has to say, "Look, things are important here." I don't know. Is this even? Is it something that she needs to sort of forgive him for? Because I know there's the kind of the lack of trust thing. But so Cersei lied, Tyrion didn't pick up on it. This is a huge problem, apparently, that Jorah needs to sort out.
This is one of those things, isn't it? Where I think, look, either do it or don't do it, but don't give me this halfway house thing. So here's how this went. Here's how quickly this went. Tyrion was wrong. Oh no, Tyrion, you're an idiot. I'm going to fire you and possibly have you killed as a traitor. Hi, Dany, Jorah here. I'm saying he's all right, really. He's a good lad. Oh, okay then. There you go. That was that.
Yeah, fair. Actually, I think that this was Tyrion who said she's going to fire my ass, and Varys and Jorah kind of went, eh. So it wasn't even that Dany threatened to do it, really, was it? I didn't get that from it. I think it was Tyrion just going, she's I'm not going to be hand for much longer.
Yeah, they went out for a fag break, stood outside, speculated a bit that, Tyrion might be getting called in by HR. But, then Jorah pops in. He's like, it's all right, son. I'll catch you by the water cooler, talk around, be fine. And it was.
Yeah. As we discover, spoilers, as we're going to discover shortly, it's all fine. It ain't no thing.
Yeah, nothing matters.
Nothing matters at all. So after that, Dany goes straight to see the Lady of Winterfell, and they seem to get everything sorted out, which is cool. And then, oh no, it all goes wrong again.
Oh God. I hated this. This was awful. This
is all really bad, isn't it? In all kinds of ways. So what happens in this scene?
Well, so we were talking last week about how this was going to be predictable. It was going to be like a sort of non-conflict between the two of them set up and then easily resolved. And honestly, it's so... I don't know if you'll agree with this, but I think in a way, it's kind of gendered in a really cheesy way.
Yeah.
Yeah. The girls get together, have a couple of mimosas, maybe a Manhattan, and it's all cool. And they're pals now. But then, I don't fucking know. One of them says something slightly miffy to the other, and they take the miff and they take the hump. But they're going to be pals again. It's rubbish. It's rubbish. And it's like... Go on.
No, go on. Do you want to finish your thought?
I think I was just going to keep saying it's rubbish over and over again till I just dissolved into a pool of anger and disappointment.
Here's the thing about that is... They basically look. I think people put too much stock in the Bechdel test, which is where your film is basically about film where there has to be a conversation between two women that isn't about men. But the thing about this is that it's really weirdly all about Jon, and how that's not right, is it? Because Dany says, why, you're kind of suspicious of me, aren't you? And is it because of Jon? And Sansa says, well, yeah, because men do stupid things for love. I've seen it, etc., which is okay. But then she says, well, I met Jon and now I'm fighting his war instead of going after what I want, which is the Iron Throne. Hang the fuck on. She understands that this is the one war, the big war, the most important war, the only war. It's not Jon's war. What the fuck is that? And I'm doing it for him. Like, what's that? None of that is true. Why is any of this in there? She is surely that's just flat wrong.
Yes, here's the thing. So none of that's true, but it's also it's not like she's not playing a clever trick. Yeah. On Sansa. It's just that the writers don't know what the hell they're doing.
It really weirded me out, I got to say. But she's literally saying, I'm here because I love your brother and I trust him and I know he's true to his word.
That's absolutely not why she's there. She was coming anyway. That's not why.
But also you can see that she's being sincere. I mean, what you used to get with a scene like this is you would discern the kind of the rumblings beneath the dialogue and the kind of the shifting subtext that would sort of push scenes into ambiguous shapes. And you're probably only going to find out later what the truth of it is. And kind of people misdirecting and obfuscating and all this. And that's not what this is it? It's just, I don't get it. What are they doing there? And then, of course, she has to get, they have their little bonding moment where, she says, well, I really trust him. And, he's only the second man in my life I can say that about.
Oh, hated this.
Oh. So, who was the first? Someone taller. Drogo Bants.
And also, Sansa laughs at that. Why does Sansa laugh at that? Has she been watching the show as well? It's like she doesn't know who Khal Drogo is or what he looks like or any of that. So, like, the way that would happen.
She used to follow him.
The way that would actually
She used to follow him on Instagram,
The way that would actually unfold is Sansa would go, why, was there ever anyone before? And Dany would go, someone taller. And Sansa would go, weird flex.
Well, they're making a little joke. I don't know. Is it like, hey, we both know your brother, who it turns out is not actually your brother. We know him. What's the thing about him? He's not very tall. And I don't know.
But he's not small, is he? He's normal height, so it just doesn't work on any level that's as a zinger.
Well, the thing is, I have actually walked past Kit Harington in the street, and he is quite. He's not a tall man. It's true. That's but then it's all relative, isn't it? He's probably about my height, and I'm like 5'7.5".
Also, so in the way it's. But the thing is,
why are we even having this discussion?
We're not talking about Kit Harington now. We're talking about Jon Snow.
No, we're
the
not.
way it's shot, and the way it's framed, and everything. He looks like a regular sized chap.
Well, you could sort of get away with it if it was a big thing in the show that Jon Snow is small, which it kind of isn't. The thing that there's been a thing about how he's pretty like a girl, and that's a kind of a note that has been sort of hit a few times, where the men have kind of gone, oh, he's prettier than my daughters, but he knows how to fight. But this is, it's some bants, and then. It gets worse. It actually gets worse because then they have that little moment and it seems like it's going to be okay. And then Sansa says, okay, so when this is all over, we can have the North, can't we? And then Dany withdraws her hand and sort of freezes over. That's not right either. She is a reasonable ruler. She's not a despot. She told Yara, I seem to recall that she told Yara that Yara could keep the Iron Islands, that they would stay free. Yeah. She would give. Surely she would give Sansa the North.
Yeah, do you not think? I agree. Like the whole point of her character, isn't it? And that all those years they spent with these two story strands kept literally on different continents, and the whole point is you've got all this corruption and pettiness and infighting and so on in Westeros, and that's very starkly contrasted with her as the sort of the just ruler, Yeah, they're just doing that thing again, aren't they? Like, right, we want this thing to happen. Does that contradict the world we've set up and the characters we've set up? Yes, it does. Oh, okay. Well, solid. Let's do it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thankfully that scene is now over with an interruption from a maester who, you see, this is always a really good way to eject a scene out of a scene when you don't know how to end it, is have somebody have an interruption from a minion.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a really solid way to, it's like the Blackadder thing. My lord, the Queen does demand your urgent presence on pain of death. So basically that guy comes in. And now we have a short but quite moving scene in which Theon returns for one of his customary excellent moments with Sansa.
Right, so this is... I feel that this is where this episode begins. And now it gets quite good for a bit.
Yeah.
He's so good, isn't he? Alfie Allen. He's so good.
Alfie Allen. He really is. The thing about him is that he's... his character arc literally involved, it was snapped over the thigh of Ramsay Bolton, basically. Yeah. It's like it was a massive, harrowing detour where he became another character. He was forced to become another character.
Yeah.
And then there was kind of that clever bit where he had to pretend to be who he previously was in order to try to get back Moat Cailin.
Yeah.
And now he's kind of a new person who is kind of neither of the two that he previously was. He's not Theon, he's not Reek, he's kind of a new Theon. I mean, obviously there's a lot of this in this show. There's people who've been through a lot of stuff and are changed, as Jamie has explicitly said at least twice so far.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's Theon, he's always like glimmering with emotion. It looks like he could burst into tears at any moment.
Yeah.
And it's great, and you can still see there's that kind of bit of Reek, there's that slight fear, and he never looks quite right, he never looks quite stable, but you can see that he's kind of gathered himself and he's come back to himself, and it's incredible, isn't it?
It's a great performance. He's basically got PTSD, and he plays that really. I'm sure he's thought this through. Maybe he wouldn't use the same terminology or whatever, but I'm sure he's really thought it through. It's fantastic. And this bit, I properly had an emotion here. And is this emotion one? I kind of, I got a little lump in the throat when they embraced, and I thought it was great. It was great.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
Well, it picks up on the thing you were saying about last week's, where you get from him a sense, like you say, a sense of the huge pile of bodies that this sits atop, and all of the horror and all of the trauma. And he just reminds you of it just with his very presence and stuff. It's good.
Yeah,
it's a good little bit.
He's a really good route into that. The thing is with this is almost a superfluous scene as well, because basically this is information that we already know, that he's going to go back and fight for Winterfell, but Sansa doesn't know, and so this is Sansa finding out, which is why it's weird that as they embrace, the camera is on Dany and her. Why is her reaction more important than seeing that? Because it's funny because you hear the kind of soft thud as they hug, but you're sort of looking at her face, and then it cuts to them, and it's that was an odd thing.
Is the point of that, because there's a bit of that, basically she's just arrived in Winterfell and she doesn't know how these people really work and what the bonds between them are, and so she's finding that stuff out, and she's seeing a different side to Sansa, to what she already knows. So I assume that's what that choice was about.
I guess
you're right. It robs us of a tear-jerking moment a bit, but I think I get what they were doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. I'll allow it. I'll allow it on this occasion. So next we've got Sir Davos in the courtyard dishing up what I guess are bowls of brown. Along with some real talk about what makes a soldier. He meets a spunky little girl who clearly reminds him of someone he used to know, and also Gilly turns up and gets a few words in. Mm-hmm. So this is Sir Davos having a moment with a little girl who is clearly meant to remind him of Princess Shireen, isn't it?
Yes, and this was emotion number 2 for me. And I'm sure you're going to laugh at me slightly because it really is pressing fairly obvious buttons, this bit. But, your guy who plays Sir Davos, his name escapes me for the moment, he's incredibly good at this thing, this kind of like stoic woundedness, it's all very below the surface kind of thing. And he I don't know, he can tug at my heartstrings, that guy, somehow. And it's a nice performance from him. It's one of those funny things where he's almost not doing anything, but it's very, very powerful. The kid's actually really quite a bad child actor, and it almost sinks the whole ship. But I liked it.
Yeah, because he's kind of telling the people, like, there's a guy who comes up and says, I'm not a soldier, and he kind of says, well, we all are now, and then a spunky little girl says, I want to fight! I want to do fighting! And he's obviously thrown by it because she has the kind of similar scarring on her face. The thing is, I couldn't get past that. Maybe this may be an unfair thing on my part, because the scarring could be from anything, but it's obviously meant to look like...
that disease she had, yeah.
It's meant to look like grayscale. And the thing is that Princess Shireen only survived having grayscale to the extent that it just got on her cheek and didn't get any further, because he spent a shitload of money summoning all of the best doctors and threw everything at it, which your average peasant wouldn't be able to do. So I kind of went, maybe, I don't know, maybe it was just the start of grayscale and they're going to ship her off to Valyria any minute now. But to be honest, I will give them that, because it could just be scarring from anything. So,
Yeah, like I say, it's pressing an obvious button, and it's doing it in the now customary way of not really caring how much sense it makes. But, I mean, like I was saying a minute ago, this is where this episode begins, because what it's doing is it's getting into the thing you were talking about earlier, which is we're now into we've moved a few pieces around, Jamie's arrived, he spoke to Brandon, blah, 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 done all that stuff. And now we're just into the rest of the episode. Really, it isn't plot, it's character stuff. It's the calm before the storm. And they're all just having this... everyone's having a good old bond before their near certain death is what's going on. And I liked it, Sir Davos has this kind of fatherly approach to almost everyone else, and it makes sense what he's doing. He's trying to keep everyone's spirits up and so on. It's good. It's nice.
Yeah. No, I'll give you that. It was not bad. Now there's a happy reunion as Ed and Tormund and Beric turn up. They explain that shit's looking bad. The Umbers are fighting for the Night King now, and they have until sunrise, which is quite a deadline.
Yeah, so this is one of the things that really grated on me this episode is they've just turned Tormund into a big Bants machine, haven't they?
Yeah, they have.
And because it's like, I thought...
Tormund giant Bants.
Because I was having this little emotional spell, like, oh, look, it's Sansa and Theon, and oh, look, it's Sir Davos, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then they turn up, what's his name? The other Night's Watch guy, Sam and John's old pal, Ed. And Ed turns up and you're like, oh, it's like a moment. And John goes to run over to him. And I'm like, this is quite moving. And then they have the thing where Tormund crashes in from off camera. Bants!
Hey,
fuck your moving reunion. Bants!
Bants! Rugby tackle!
Yeah.
The lads are all here. Lads.
Hated it. Hated
that.
It's absolutely and it's a shame as well, because the rest of the scene is fine, but they just dropped the Bants bomb on it.
Please stop. We can't take any more Bants. It's only episode 2. Yeah. Fucking hell. So there's kind of a little mini montage then of the fighting preparations going on, while John explains how fucking bad it is. Then we're in a war room, effectively, where Bran explains that the Night King is always going to go for him, his mark is on him, and then there's sort of some strategizing goes on, which I kind of this I felt got really good, because they start to get into they've talked before about what's at stake, but they start talking about it in these kind of existential terms. It's like Gendry has already set this up by saying, look, it's like fighting death. The White Walkers are death. Mm-hmm. And they get back to that. And this could really be hammering the point, but you start to kind of go, oh yeah, this is really big. It's like, this is potentially the end of everything.
Yeah.
And it's the ultimate existential threat. And they've also set up about what there is afterwards, which is nothing. Beric Beric Dondarrion has died multiple times, and he says there's nothing.
Yes.
It's the darkness. Jon said the same thing. I died, there was nothing. And this is like they're really getting down to the nub of the whole thing. It's like life itself is what we're fighting for. And Beric said it's like death always wins, the enemy always wins, but you fight anyway. But they're talking about the loss of humanity itself, the loss of history, along with the loss of future, just the nothing, the big nothing is coming in that kind of never-ending story way. Like, it's the nothing. That's what you're facing. And it's like, fuck, yes, it is.
Yes. There's also a really nice nuance, I think, that hasn't been explored before, but doesn't contradict anything, doesn't reckon, just adds to things, which is, we talked about, there's this sense now that Bran knows everything. Well, he doesn't know everything. Yeah. He knows everything that has happened. He is the memory of the world, So there are certainly things that he doesn't know. And one of the things that comes up in this, is it even possible to defeat the Night King? Well, no one's ever tried. And this might well be completely futile. That I thought was a great unsettling thing, because there's been this implication up to now that Bran's gonna kind of figure it out because he's like he knows the solution. He doesn't at all. He's got no idea, which is great, I think. Yeah,
and also that Bran is vulnerable as well, because there's this kind of sense that he's above everything and outside of everything. But there's this profound. He's very fragile, and he's there kind of offering to go out as bait, which is,
the implication is there that he's playing some kind of long game on everyone, and there's things he's not saying, I think. But hey,
well, who even knows? Let's keep watching. And then there has to be, so Dany and Tyrion sort it out. So that's that. Everything's fine there. So, it had me going for a minute there, but now it's fine. And then I think we end there on Tormund saying, well, we're all going to die, but at least we die together, and has a little lech at Brienne, who just looks baffled and disgusted. Why is this still a thing? It's,
it's what's annoying to me is, it's like you say, why is this still a thing? Because they've done that. What's annoying to me is, again, it's that thing of reducing the characters to really simple things. So Tormund, as was this guy, he's kind of boisterous and ribald, and according to Brienne's kind of King's Landing sensibilities, a bit kind of crass and so on. But that was all a few years back, before all this craziness happened. So she's changed a lot, and she's changed how she sees other people a lot. Also, Tormund has not particularly hidden depths. He's a clever guy. He's a serious guy. He's a morally serious guy, and he's very, very loyal and stuff. And what they're doing is they're just running with, basically, he gave off a first impression, and then we got to know him better, and he had all these other things to him, and they're just going with the first impression of him. Yeah, and he's just this big lunk, which is what Brienne thought he was at first and was wrong about. Do you know what I mean? So it's not necessarily the case. I'm not saying that it should be like she really likes him now or anything. It's not that, but they wouldn't be stuck in this first meeting place. There's no way.
Yeah, why they just keep hitting that beat over and over. My prediction is that they're gonna do loud comedy fucking while it'll be in the background where two other characters are having a serious conversation, and they'll go, what's that? And there'll be comedy noises, because it'll be a callback to Lysa Arryn and Littlefinger, where she's, making ostentatious screams. And then also it'll be a callback to it'll be a heartwarming loss of virginity, because we're all rooting for Brienne to get laid. And that's kind of, that's a bit of a nod to Sam and Gilly. And it's going to be really shit. That's my prediction.
Oh, they might go there, mightn't they? Yeah.
I think they might. I wouldn't put it past them. Or, what I would prefer to see would be a kind of that, instead of her... See, I don't think that would be heartwarming, because that's about what he wants. Because whether or not Brienne, that's not necessarily something that she's really bothered about. So it would be better if it was on her terms, where it was a battlefield thing, as opposed to a sex thing, you know?
Oh,
Where
God.
maybe there will be some elevated moment of
comedy sex on the battlefield.
No, oh Christ! Well, maybe that'll be why though, is because she will save his life, and he'll get some renewed respect for her as a warrior, and then they'll be free to do it. See, can't wait.
Oh God!
I'm really sorry to put that in your brain, but if they don't do that, then I'll applaud it.
That's what the show is trying really, really hard to put in your brain all the time, though, isn't it? And it's boring, you know. It's and that whole strand kind of spoils a lot of the rest of the episode. This thing of Tormund's just this daft dunderhead.
Yeah,
Egypt, you know, he tells that story about it's coming up in a bit where
we'll get to that. Yeah. Do you feel do you think that was the low point of the show? I think it might have been. Oh no, actually no. To be fair, I think we'll assess at the end, but I think the low point was probably the Dany and Sansa bit that we've just been talking about because what the fuck? But it was yet another low point. Is Tormund's kind of galumphing, capering idiocy, and he's up there with your lad Greyjoy as a show blocker at this point, which is a terrible disservice.
Yeah, because he's such a fantastic character, you know, or was, you know. Yeah,
thanks, guys. So the end of that scene, Tyrion kind of pulls up a chair and says to Bran, "Tell me everything," which that's kind of a spin-off show of itself, isn't it, really? Anyone asking Bran to tell him everything, you're going to be there a long time.
Are you familiar with the American comedy duo who only seem to exist on YouTube, Britannic?
I am not.
They did that thing a few years ago that went viral, the Oscar-winning movie trailer. You know, where it's all the kind of Oscar-bait cliches.
Right.
Anyway,
yeah,
there's one of those sketches is this thing called "Tell Me Everything" that's just brilliant, you know, because one of them finds out that the other one's like copped off with his girlfriend or something, and he really angrily goes, "Tell me everything." And he goes, "Okay, first, all matter in the universe was condensed into a singularity. Then there was a flash," and it just goes on in this montagey way, kind of thing, you know. And it's nice. It's incredible. I don't know. I just remembered that because I thought, well, you know, Bran would be the guy, wouldn't he?
Well, yeah.
But no.
Yeah, he would.
So I think the point of that is because he just says that, you know, I'm keen to know everything you've been through. And then that scene ends because obviously, hey, we don't need to. We know we've been watching the show. I think the point of that is I think Tyrion now knows something that nobody else knows apart from him and Bran. I think they're planting a little seed there. Yeah.
Do you think?
Well, I hope. I mean, I hope it's not just completely pointless.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm glad, to be honest, that we didn't get another scene like we had with Tyrion and Missandei and Grey Worm, where Tyrion tries to have a drink and get loose with Missandei and Grey Worm, who don't have a sense of humour between them.
Oh, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
I'm glad at least they didn't do that, where Tyrion tries to get pissed with Bran and there's nothing there at all.
The thing is, though, I mean, at least when they did that with Missandei and Grey Worm, they sort of played it with a straight bat, didn't they? Whereas the way they do it now, they'd just have Bran doing some bants, wouldn't they? He'd just get stuck into the bants.
But Brants, yeah. let us pray that never comes to pass.
Okay, but no, I think that's a plot strand.
Well, okay, let's see. I'm not sure I agree, but I guess I hope so. Speaking of Missandei and Grey Worm, that's who we check in with next. Missandei experiences some unfortunate northern racism from a couple of children. And then she and Grey Worm talk about the future, which is never a good idea, is it? Don't do that. Don't talk about your future plans. Yeah. You're in a TV show. Don't do it, man.
So what order are these two characters going to die in?
That's gonna suck, isn't it?
It's going to suck, yeah.
I don't know. I think Grey Worm's gonna die, and she's gonna.
Who brought it up? He brought it up, didn't he? He brought up the subject of the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna die.
So he's gonna get it.
Yeah.
Just for that. That's your punishment, you know. But the number of times it's such a thing. It's been in this show, it's been in other shows where it's also reminiscing about the past.
Yeah.
Don't do that either. It's a trap. You know, you are literally the next scene. That's you.
Do you remember Noah out The Walking Dead?
Noah, yes, that was what I was thinking.
Never has this move been got through so fast. It's like Noah had a little scene in The Walking Dead where he sort of said, I used to be all kind of pessimistic, but now I'm feeling like things are on the up. And he was dead like within 10 minutes.
And it was awful.
He was all the way dead, yeah.
And yeah, it was. Oh no, I'm just actually having a bit of a flashback now. That was it. I admired. I don't even want to get into it because this is a podcast about Game of Thrones and not about The Walking Dead. But you do find yourself, it being the other massive show, you do find yourself referring to it, don't you?
Yeah.
And it was one of the things that they did really well. But oh god, that is a thing I never want to see again. How that kid went out.
It was horrible, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, brilliant, an absolute masterpiece.
Yeah. Yes, well done, everyone. I hate you.
Yes.
So yeah, Missandei has this little moment of just going up and saying hi to a couple of kids who immediately fuck off because as we saw, this is kind of this is what happened in the first episode as well, where they kind of rode into Winterfell and they were getting some real hostile looks from Northerners who've never seen black people before.
Yeah, I think that's okay. It's real about what the world would be like,
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I have no problem with that. But then that kind of leads them to go, there's going to be no place for us here after this battle, which is that right or not? Because it's like, well, people are sweeping aside their petty differences. And I guess they don't. I suppose they have reason not to believe that.
Well, I mean, you're definitely overthinking it at this point because we've already said why this is here. This is here to make it a bit sadder when they kill Grey Worm next week.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's what that's for,
Oh yeah. No, I need to get with the program, don't I?
Yeah.
There is kind of a nice bit there where they talk about. She wants to go back to Narth, which is where she's from, but she worries about that. She says, "Well, my people are peaceful and they can't protect themselves." And Grey Worm says, "My people are not peaceful, so we'll look out for them," which I thought was quite nice.
Right. Okay. Actually, I had mixed feelings about that because that's sort of a nice thing about those two characters, isn't it? That's sort of what their relationship is. Do you know what I mean? Mm. Or it's a central strand of it, And again, I'm overthinking this, but if you scale that up geopolitically, well, the militaristic culture bumping into the peaceful island culture, we kind of know from the history books how that goes. I was a bit uncomfortable with it. I thought, that's not a George R.R. Martin kind of note to hit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're probably right.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a moot point.
It's nice between those two characters. You get that's the thing about them, isn't it? They both admire each other for having qualities that they don't possess. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
fine. That's like a real relationship. Yeah, it's like Yeah. So that was kind of that was all right by me. Then we're back with Sam and John and Ed, the last men of the Night's Watch, standing on the battlements, talking about how they're all going to die, and then inevitably having a pointless argument.
Yes.
Again.
Okay. So you know what though, I don't mind. For a start, fun with aesthetics. They look really metal in this scene. I enjoyed that.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, so we've talked a lot about the way this show does bants. It does show bants all the time. Whereas actually these characters, you know, they're these guys and they're a bunch of guys and they've been sort of essentially in the army together since they were quite young and stuff. And I don't know, it felt true to the characters, that conversation that they had, and they sort of took the piss out of each other a bit. You know, it's okay. It wasn't. I mean, again, it's one of those things. It's not doing anything, but it's not doing any harm. I don't suppose it's okay. I liked it. Nice to see Ed again.
It's nice to know. I love that guy. He's great. I mean, he's quite a minor guy. There's not much going on with him, but he had one of my favourite lines. Sorry, go on.
Apparently, in real life, he's a stand-up comedian, so I'm quite keen to try and see him. I think
that's interesting because he doesn't do that kind of slightly showboaty, muggy thing that comedians sometimes do when they're in serious roles. You know, he really doesn't. He really plays it down. But yeah, he had one of my favourite lines when they first show up at Craster's Keep in whenever that was, season 3 or 4. And he sort of regards the place and goes, "I grew up in a place like this. Later, I fell on hard times."
Yes,
it's just really nice. It's a really nice bit. So yeah, I like him. I mean, he I guess still is the commander of the Night's Watch, even though the Night's Watch kind of isn't a thing anymore. But anyway, but that's, you know, so he's there. But it's Sam. It's the same thing as Brienne having a snipe at Jamie because she doesn't trust him not to take the piss out of her. It's kind of the same thing. Sam does that to Jon because Jon says, "Do you want to go and protect the crypt?" And Sam is like, "No, fuck you. You think I can't fight? I killed a White Walker, I've blah, 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 blah." And that's when, and then they start kind of having little digs at each other. It's like, again, surely Sam has moved on from that. Surely Jon has moved on from that. Why is that there?
I see what you're saying. I didn't really like that. Like, they're not seriously saying any of this to each other. Apart from, you know, there's a very slight thing of Jon, like, you know, "Hey, you know, you're my friend, and I want you to be okay." And then he goes, you know, I've survived just as much as you have. They're not really having a row. They sort of, he's opened the door for Sam a bit there, and he's gone, "No, I want to stand with everybody else." And then they just start having a laugh. That was my reading of it anyway.
Well, I was just, I was kind of just going, "Oh, can we not, you know, for that bit." But I see what you mean. It's like, I guess I'll allow it. There's the thing is that then there's kind of a bit where they all feel that there's kind of this building portent in this episode, which there had to be, you know, there should be, if they fuck that up, they really all would be lost. Yeah. But also there is a moment where they kind of all feel the gravity of the situation, but it's kind of, it doesn't quite hit. I mean, there's a general, they kind of tap into the general sense of foreboding, and it's everyone's just sitting around going, "Well, we're all going to die. Everything's fucked." And there's kind of a moment of that, but it didn't land for me because of the kind of mithering that had gone before.
Yeah. It's you know, it's a bit frustrating, isn't it? Because it kept having little runs of, obviously that's what it's trying to do. You know, there's this slowly creeping up sense of like, oh shit, you know, everybody starts getting a bit more serious about it and a bit more grave, and oh no, you know, and it kind of, it had little bits of pulling it off and then bits of not pulling it off. And like I say, there are things that just ruinously run through it. The characterization of Tormund is very, very harmful to this bit. Some of these bits are a bit, they're just tonally a bit off. Yeah, because this bit is like three lads having a laugh, which sort of isn't where we should be at this moment. But
again, it's not the worst moment, as we know. We've kind of been there in one sense, and also we're careening into another one in a bit.
Yes.
Oh my God, yes. In fact, In fact, it's coming up right now. So we're back with Jaime and Tyrion sitting by the fire, as you would, having a drink and talking about things. And they are joined by Brienne and Pod, and then Davos and Tormund, the latter of whom proceeds to tell an absolutely harrowing story.
Is this the story about the giant?
Yes, this is the story about the giant. So it's nice they've kind of assembled, they've got nothing to do, they're sitting around and waiting. It's very sort of, in the trenches, they're waiting for, the order.
Yeah.
So that's a really, you can get loads out of that. That's a great situation to put people in. And so that's quite natural. I don't really have a problem with, the kind of people who wander in to warm themselves by the fire. When I had this, it's funny, I had this phantom sense. I had this sense of anticipation watching this, going, oh, maybe they'll all get pissed and they'll speak naturally and frankly and loads of stuff will come out. And it's like, no, that's if they were people. They're characters. Do you know what I mean? I kind of, for a minute, I got that glimmer of like, oh, there's going to be some really amazing stuff that's going to happen. But I was kind of, for a moment, fooled into thinking that these were people, which is I'm glad that I can still feel like that, but it came and went very quickly.
Yeah, that you're exactly right about this. They set up a nice thing and then absolutely throw it away. With just nonsense and stupidity. How does it unfold? So the first 4 or so arrive to quite quickly, don't they?
Well, Jaime and Tyrion have been sat there for however long. This is the bit where they toast to the perils of self-betterment. So
and that's good. That bit with line. Just the two of them is nice. Good, isn't it? That's the thing. It sets up quite nicely, and you're like, oh, this is good. This is a good, interesting scene. Who arrives next? It's the two of them.
It's Brienne and Pod, and Brienne kind of refuses to have a drink and then says, oh, all right, because Tyrion then, there's a nice little bit between Tyrion and Pod, who obviously have been through a lot together, and Pod used to it's even nicer because Pod used to be Tyrion's squire, yes. So he would pour his wine, and then Tyrion pours because Brienne says, oh, don't give him too much, you shouldn't get pissed.
Yeah, and he says just half of one, but he gives him a full...
Just half, and he just fills it massive to overflowing, and they have a little look, and it's really, that was really nice.
Yeah, exactly. So up to there... It's like, this is totally working and it's totally doing what it's meant to do. And then Tormund, who for no reason has turned into Big Bird out of Sesame Street, just comes rollicking in. Just like, what?
Yeah. So I can't, it's just absolutely off its bollocks, this scene, isn't it? Like, I'm going to tell you a story, and he pulls up the chair, and it's like, I killed a giant when I was 10, and then I got into bed with his wife, and she suckled me for 3 months. That's why I'm so awesome. And then he glugs kind of extravagantly and grossly from a massive drinking horn, which is apparently filled with some sort of milk.
Yeah.
Presumably not giant's milk. There's no fucking giants about. So... And everyone just kind of... But that's the thing, maybe that it does put you in the show, because everyone else kind of stares blankly at him.
Yes.
And as do we.
I wonder if they shot that, quite famously, the chestburster scene in Alien, the way they got the reaction shots was none of the cast knew what the special effect was. So they see it for the first time themselves, and they all just went, oh my God, that's horrible, and that's what you got on film. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe nobody knew what Tormund's anecdote was going to be. And he just comes out with this, and the cast are just like, what the fuck, dude?
What? Did he really just say that? Yeah, no.
It was terrible, wasn't it?
But it's like the biggest non sequitur. Like, where do you go from there? Like, you could just end the entire show there. And that's it.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Or just have...
Go on,
I'm surprised they didn't have another guy come in and say, my lord, the Queen does demand your urgent presence on pain of death. And they're like, thank God.
Does the scene end there? I can't remember. I was so knocked out of... It just totally took me out of it. I was like, this is stupid.
I know.
This is stupid.
Right, the kindest thing I can say about this is this meant to be, way back when they were north of the wall, and they played it really nicely because they kind of come in at the end of this story, or he's kind of mid story, and then Ygritte kind of cuts him off and goes, "Look, you know you never fucked a bear. We all know you never fucked a bear. You never fucked a bear." Because is it meant to be that? Is it meant to be one of his tall tales? In which case, why is it played that way? Why is it kind of played straight? Because they could all have. I don't know. I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know what like
they perhaps if they could have had a scene where everyone's sat around really having a laugh, like they have a moment and it's all really hilarious, and then they remember where they are and what's happening and stuff. You could have done something with that, couldn't you? But yeah,
they could have laughed. I think that could have worked if they'd actually just kind of gone, "Come on." And somebody had broken the tension, but the tension doesn't break; it just goes on and on, and then something else happens. So
it was odd. It was really odd, that bit. Yeah,
very, very.
And again,
odd.
It's that thing, isn't it, that we've talked about? It's definitely it's meme fodder. God, I didn't torment a legend.
Yeah. Let's now stop talking about that and never speak of it again. So then we have. Then there's another little scene between Arya and the Hound on the battlements, suggesting another uneasy truce. Beric Dondarrion also turns up, and he's really sorry about that whole selling Gendry to the witch thing. So this is a very short scene, as you said. It's kind of revisiting Arya and the Hound, but slightly better.
Yeah, it's really nice. Like he just explicitly states, and I think perhaps. It's like he's realizing something as well as saying it, Like all that time he thought he was taking Arya to like collect a ransom or whatever, but actually, the hand of fate was at play, and yes, he was protecting her all that time, and he's kind of finally understood this about himself, that that's who he is. It's good.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong there, is there?
No.
And then Beric turns up and kind of interrupts them, and she says, "I'm not spending my final hours with you two miserable old shits," and buggers off. That all works okay, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's fine.
That seems like something that she would do. Well, of course, and she's got more serious business. So we follow Arya on what turns out to be a very serious mission. She finds Gendry again and demands that he hand over the special weapon. I'm sorry, this is what this has reduced me to. But so, do you want to talk us through this bit? Because obviously you're going to take it more. No, actually, this is not a bad bit, is it?
So I'll confess, I was a bit drunk by this point as I was watching, and my brain did a strange thing, and I think because obviously we've lived with this character for so long and watched her grow up, and I must be old now because my brain just went all kind of on this like mum tangent. And I kind of went, oh, well, she's done all right for herself there. He's a nice lad. He's got steady work. He's got a sensible haircut, not like them scruffy buggers up on the wall. I just turned into me Auntie Mary. I was like, if I was 40 years younger, I wouldn't mind myself.
I tell you what.
So yeah, I think I had this feeling like, he's a nice lad. That's nice. So yeah.
Is it a bit? I mean, I thought you were going to say you had a sort of mum moment of like embarrassment because it's like, it's Arya, like the sort of, it's Arya and how, because she still looks so young. We just know her. We've known her from a child, so it's you kind of have that slight kind of character whiplash, I suppose, where it's
So I've been trying to avoid chatter and stuff on the internet before I watch these things, but I'd accidentally seen that there was a scene of this nature, sort of thing. And
I had too. Yeah.
And I'd seen some of the social media consternation, like lots of people going a bit like, "Ooh, this feels weird." So I don't know if I would have had that reaction if I hadn't known. But to me, it's like, no, this makes complete sense. The character is now an adult or whatever. So I didn't have that reaction to it at all. I was fine with it. I feel like it made sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does. I was the way in which it slightly didn't make sense for me, I suppose, is like, is Arya even fussed at all. She is this kind of or near supernatural warrior at this point. Is she still even concerned with the kind of lowly pleasures of the flesh? But, fair enough.
Well, it's
fair
interesting.
Enough, really.
It's interesting the way she frames it, isn't it? Like I say, she's this weird. She's grown up so weirdly. She is psychologically odd, and they play that. And she basically just goes, "Well, I think I'm probably going to die, so I should at least know what this is like."
Yeah.
It's obviously she does emotionally invest in things, but the character has had to survive by a lot of keeping emotions in check and under control, and so when people have to do that, they develop really odd personality traits, and I think that was all there. I thought it seemed to be intelligently done and true to the character. It was okay.
Yeah. And like you said, it's this is the guy who has written Arya. For, a lot of the crucial stuff. So, I think it. I mean, I think it, in some ways it's sort of it's almost fan service, but I think it's okay. It's maybe they sort of telegraphed. I do feel like some of it is written in anticipation of the hot takes. And kind of trying to preempt things. So it's like, look, she's a strong woman. She knows what she wants. Look how we're doing that thing.
Yeah.
Look how she's telling him to take off his own pants. But that's fine. I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
So hooray! At least somebody got some. You would kind of think there'd be more shagging going on in this night before everyone. More drinking, more shagging, more of that. So this is, I think, the only She's the only one who gets any that we know of. But who knows? Maybe some of them will get in a quickie next time when just as dawn is breaking. I don't know.
Well, Tormund's giving it a good old go, but out of luck, son. I'm afraid she's not having it.
I would counter that. In fact, she is, and we're going to have to suffer through it. So. Back in the hall by the fire, everyone's drinking and chatting, having agreed never to speak of Tormund's giant milk story ever again. And this gives way to a spontaneous ceremony that nobody saw coming, and also makes for probably the best moment, I would think. Do you reckon?
Yeah, it's nice.
I had a feeling that I had. Nice. Did you have emotion number 2 at this point, or
this was emotion number 3? Yeah. They. So first thing. Suddenly, out of nowhere, they remembered who Tormund was. And he's one of the free folk. He says, doesn't he? They go, why? He goes, what? She's not called Sir. She's not a knight. Why is that? And they go, it's tradition. He's like, fuck tradition. All right. There you go. The free folk north of the wall, the way they think, their whole philosophy. They are deeply egalitarian, Suddenly they remember this about him. He's not just Oliver Hardy with a beard. So that's great, and that sets in motion this little train of thought for the other characters where actually Tormund's right. What the fuck, Brienne's absolutely earned her stripes, and then just a little legal thing. There's no king here. If I was a king, I would knight you. It's like, we don't need a king. You just need another knight. And up steps Jaime. Completes the circle between those two, in a way that all the other gubbins didn't earlier in the episode. Like, to this now does put the seal on it. He knights her, and stuff. It was great. Yeah. And Gwendolyn Christie, who's always good. I don't know. She does this really uncomplicated smile. That just takes absolute joy in the whole thing, and it's. Because her character doesn't do that very much. It was a really, really sweet moment, wasn't it? Very touching,
Yeah, it really was, and they all applaud, and it was beautiful. It was really nice. Again, there's simple dialogue in there, which is the kind of ritual language that's right direct from the sort of deep mythology and the custom and the way of speaking established in this, that is the basis of this world. It's the kind of in the name of the warrior, I charge you to be brave. In the name of the father, I charge you to be just. That's all that ritual stuff is gorgeous. That's all straight out of the books.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's great. What a brilliant moment that like I said, my expectations now are really low. I don't expect there to be, which is good. And I'm always happy to be pleasantly surprised in this way. And it just, they didn't fuck it up, and it's great. What a great moment.
Yes.
Well done, everyone. Yeah. Also, at this point, before this, Tyrion voices a note of optimism, says, "I think we might live," and I think they sort of laugh about this, but it's like, I think that belongs there as well. It has a place. So,
do you remember earlier on in the episode, I said a thing? There's a thing that happens. I can't remember what I said this about actually, but I was like, "Look, he's saying this because he doesn't think they're going to make it."
Oh yeah, about him saying that he wants to go and fight and wants to go out that way.
Yeah. So now he thinks they might live. And this comes after that conversation he's had with Bran. I'm just saying, that's what I think's going on there.
I think you might be overthinking it. But I note this. I'm prepared to be wrong. I don't know. I think that came out. I don't know. I think he was drinking and it just occurred to him. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe nothing just occurs to anyone.
Yeah, actually, that works just as well, doesn't it? Maybe even better. He's just suddenly, They've had this moment where they've sat together for a while and had a drink together, and they've gone, you know what? Actually, look at us. We've done some amazing stuff. Yeah. If anyone, if this is possible at all, we'd be the people. Perhaps it's that kind of moment. Yeah,
I don't know. The thing is about the what's he going to discover from Bran? As you said, Bran doesn't know what will be. He doesn't know the future. So there is that, how much, what he might have imparted something to Tyrion that Tyrion can use that, so there might be that, but yeah, I'll bear that in mind. So we then are back outside, and Sam happens upon Jorah having a bit of a disagreement with Lyanna, his cousin, and then there's another ceremonial moment immediately after the last one, which again makes perfect sense. Works really well, I think. What did you think?
Well, let me just pull those two things apart. Because we didn't touch on this last week, but nonetheless, it was for God's sake, Lyanna. Oh, for God's sake, right? Now, everyone agrees that moment where she decides to tell off all the other lords and support Jon to be the king in the north a couple of seasons ago was bad to the ass, right? It was great.
Yeah.
Here's the problem, right? You know how one of our really great environmental problems and dangers is the proliferation in the world of single-use plastics, right? And they're mostly like things that we just, beads for like street festivals and hen party accessories and Christmas cracker toys. We're gonna choke the planet on whimsical single-use plastic nonsense that was only ever meant to be fun for one day, but we can't get rid of. I think you see where I'm going with this. Now Lyanna Mormont is a single-use plastic that just refuses to biodegrade. Do you know what I mean? And it's like,
do you think?
The character doesn't do anything. It's of no import. We've not got to know her in any way. There's no development of it. Lyanna Mormont turns up and is stern to middle-aged men. And then we tweet about it. We make memes of her with the pixelated glasses and smoking a blunt. And that's what she's for. Do you know what I mean? And that's what's this scene. Do you know what I mean? It's like, let's get Lyanna Mormont to be stern to a middle-aged man, because that's always good, isn't it? For heaven's sake.
No, that is correct. You want there to be more to it than that. You want her to be more of a thing.
Well, I want her to be less of a thing. I want them to just stop doing this because it's rubbish. Well, it was great that one time.
Yes, it was. She's probably going to die heroically in the next episode, so, that will take care of that.
Yeah. No, they're just going to keep doing this to the bitter end, aren't they? She's going to be in every week, just doing that.
She's going to turn up and sort of wag her finger right at the end and like, you did that all wrong.
Yeah.
What do you think you're doing?
So what was the thing, the ceremonial bit straight after this?
Okay, so immediately after that, so Sam kind of turns up just as Lyanna is stomping off in high teenage dudgeon, and in a kind of mirror to a previous scene. It's like poetry. See, it's like they rhyme. John at one point tried to give Ser Jorah, pretty stupidly to be honest, when they were north of the Wall going after the White Walkers, tried to give him back Longclaw, which is his sword given to him by Jeor Mormont, the former commander of the Night's Watch, and Jorah refused.
Yes.
Sam is now doing the same thing, but better, and it's kind of more. It kind of makes extra sense. He's giving him the Tarly family sword, which because there's this sort of perfect interlinking thing here. This is like a proper resolution of stuff that was not right. Because Jeor Mormont, the commander, was kind of a father figure to Sam. Mm-hmm. Sam's own father was a shitbag, and Jorah brought shame on the Mormonts, etc. And this is just and Jorah's queen killed Sam's father, and Sam says, "Look, I can't even hold this upright. You should have this sword." And yeah, it was a small thing that just seemed so correct to me. It was so satisfying.
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, I mean, right at the 11th hour, I am actually warming to Sam and to John Bradley, who plays him. He is good. He used to annoy me a lot, and now there's so much going on with him. There's a bit of the John Candies about him, which is nothing to do with his build. It's just his face. There's just a lot going on in his face, and just that sort of, yeah. Again, it's a kind of a Theon thing. You can kind of see where he's been, and he really brings it to bear at this point. And and you can see how he's changed, and you just really feel it.
Yeah, I really like that guy. I think he's a good actor, and it's a good character. I mean, we touched on this last week, didn't we? I think if the concept of the character doesn't quite hit with you, he seems like lightweight comic relief, but I don't think he is that. I think no. I think I said this last week, but the point of him is that he's a completely guileless and trustworthy guy. Do you know what I mean? And he's not comic relief, but he is very, very sharp contrast to this world full of schemers, because he never schemes. He's absolutely an open book, I think that's dramatically useful,
Yes. No, you are right. They did do him wrong quite a bit as well. They had him do some kind of humiliating fannying about in the last season or two.
That horrible scene where they did that kind of Edgar Wright style fast cuts of him cleaning out toilet bowls and stuff. Do you remember that? Yeah. That was ghastly.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, I do. Yeah. Which is another one of those things where it's like real world bleed, because anyone who has seen Edgar Wright, that's Edgar Wright's thing.
Yeah.
And you'll go, oh, you're doing that. And it's this very kind of, obviously you can do whatever you want. You can bring in influences from all over the place, but they were really obviously doing a fucking Shaun of the Dead bit, and it was incorrect.
Yeah, took me right out of it.
Yeah. But yeah, and then he has a nice line. He turns around and in a kind of similar way to Tyrion, I guess, but with a bit more reservation, just says, "I hope we win." and I was like, God, me too. I care again.
Yeah.
So, that did it for me. I felt a feeling.
Right. Okay, so that's emotion number 4. I didn't note that. Yeah. I didn't note that. I think I was probably too drunk to care at that point.
I do think maybe for the last episode, this is what we should do, is just get absolutely off our arse and kind of, and just do it in real time, I think that...
Oh, God.
Yeah. So, we're back at the fire, and the gang is now all out of wine, which is a shame. I was hoping at this point that maybe they'd get onto the milk of the poppy and they get really deep, and then one of them would start giggling. But anyway, that's not what happens. But Pod has something to contribute here, which is a beautiful song.
Yes.
Did this bit work for you?
It's okay. It's thematically consistent, I guess, isn't it? I looked it up, and if you're a real Game of Thrones geek, it's like it's a song that's mentioned in the books. That it's kind of, it's basically the whole legend in a nice little snappy toe tapper, and it kind of, you know, anticipates that someone from the Targaryen bloodline is going to save the world and blah, blah, blah. I'm fine with all this. I mean, it's that kind of Lord of the Ringsy window dressing, isn't it? You know, it's all right.
Well, I guess. I mean, the thing is, something you should know about me is I bloody love a montage.
Right.
I absolutely love one. I don't know if I said this last time, but I really do. I am a sucker for that. And they've done this to mostly successfully in this show, and occasionally very successfully, of just really like moments that really reverberate. I mean, it's not quite, you know, the kind of chaos is a ladder bit.
Yeah.
But it's a really nice little montage. So there's, you know, you just get Theon, so Pod is singing, you know, quite beautifully, and you see Theon and Sansa just having some stew, Sam and Gilly and little Sam all together. And then you go back to Gendry. There's the kind of classic thing: man asleep, woman staring moodily out of window,
yes,
or upwards.
Yeah,
having a little think about the sex she just had.
Yeah,
which is kind of a classic thing. And then Grey Worm kisses Missandei goodbye, and that's a moment.
Yes, he had a nice little tick in the way he played that, didn't he? Where he walks away really abruptly and doesn't look back.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, yeah.
That was lovely, yeah, and oh god. So you've, you know, there's several feelings are happening here, and that's good, and I think it's earned. I didn't feel like they were just, you know, squeezing me to see what they could get out of me. It's a nice natural, you know.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then it ends up with kind of Jorah watching the horizon in the dark, and there's just the dark sky and the snow, and it's all of that was lovely. I loved it. So then some shit comes to a head. We're back in the crypt, which is now the crucible in this show of shit coming to a head. It's time for Egg John Targaryen Snow to lay some truth on Dany. It just doesn't fit, does it?
No.
Is this again, this is kind of a thing, like, you can't really mess this up. You know, I don't know. What do you reckon? I feel like this was a genuinely uncomfortable scene in a good way. Yeah.
Because for all that we, the audience, know all of this information, this is actually a really terrible thing for her to find out, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like everything falls to bits. Well, this relationship's a non-runner. The entire political situation is suddenly different. You know, it upends the world completely, doesn't it? Yeah.
Do you know what? I just realised the issue with this is that earlier they set up kind of completely bafflingly the idea that this is all about her and Jon, and that she'll do anything for him and blah, blah, blah. But the way that she reacts as a leader first, or as a person who wants power and who has worked incredibly hard to get it.
Yes.
So maybe that is in line. That also is wrong. Because I can't... Surely there's going to be more going on here, but that seems to be what she leads with, is just like, oh, great. So everything I've been through, and now there's this massive cheat, and a man is going to get in the way of the throne.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? Why is that her first? Why is that the only... that's kind of the only thing as well.
Well, the thing is, I think that would be okay, except that it contradicts the other thing that they did.
Yeah, exactly.
But they just shouldn't have done that other thing. No. And also, they've plainly forgotten that they did. So, okay.
Well,
okay,
to
fine.
be fair, it was at least 20 minutes ago. So,
Yeah,
you know, of course they're going to, you know.
So,
who can keep up?
If there's a real weakness here, it's in that this is slightly forced tension, because if anyone's been paying attention, we know that Jon Snow doesn't want power. He's constantly trying to get away from it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So actually, if that conversation had lasted another 30 seconds, he'd have been like, "Look, I don't want to be the king. It's fine. I'm good with it. You be the queen. It's fine."
I just had this moment of.
But then, obviously the guy runs in and says the queen wants to demands your presence. Yeah.
My lord.
Yeah.
The queen. Thank God, I couldn't have waited another second without you. Because the horns blow, don't they? But I had I did have a moment then where I remembered a line from another show which is Veep. Actually, have you watched Veep?
I've never seen Veep.
It's pretty good. It is no longer good, but it was very, very good for a long time.
Right.
We'll do the next podcast about that. But there's a bit where I can't remember the context exactly, but it's that somebody is going to that she's going to get the female vice president isn't going to be president because a guy is going to get in the way or something is going to be thwarted, and she's just sitting there going, "It's because he's a man, because of the axis of dick." And I saw that in Dani's face. She was just kind of like, "Oh, it's gonna be a fucking bloke that stops me, isn't it? For fuck's sakes." So yeah, there's that. So that was.
And I've spent all day working on this friendship bracelet for Sansa. Fuck's sake.
Oh man! So yes, then horns blow, and we eject a seat out of there onto the battlements, because what the fuck is coming? Yeah. And this is the final scene. There's a good dramatic moment on the battlements. There's a look between Jon and Dany, which is and then he does that great. I have to admit, he does that great kind of almost Darth Vader kind of shoulder swivel and walk away.
Yeah.
Which is good. And then so Tyrion staring out, and then there appears to be a dead horse with somebody on it.
Yes. And it pans up, and it's a White Walker, and then it pulls out slightly. And I was trying to remember, have we ever seen this before? It's like there are hundreds of White Walkers. Isn't it normally that there's just like a few of those, and it's mostly like the white zombie people? Well,
the thing is that in the Hardhome episode, where there's kind of they're in the little fishing village, and there's a huge massacre, and it's that really incredible sequence. There's a point where they look up and they see the Night King kind of on the cliff.
Yeah.
With 3 lieutenants. And it's very obviously, it's like, it's the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yes.
And it was amazing. It's just like, fuck, yes, it is that biblical, and they are going for it in that way.
Yeah.
Since when? Okay, so one of them buys it immediately because Jon gets him with the Valyrian sword.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird, isn't it? Because it was undercut slightly for me, this final scene of this episode, because there's like a row of them, and it really looks like they've just kind of been cut and pasted.
Yes.
They're all that guy. They're all the kind of Iron Maiden guy, and with the same spear. And I was like, hang on, no, they've all been slightly different before.
Yeah.
Have they cloned themselves? So it did take me out of it, and this is meant to be, oh, fuck. It's meant to be that moment. And I went, hang on.
The reason why I mentioned there being so many of them and wondering if we've seen that before is I don't remember having seen loads of them before. I remember it always being a few.
Yeah.
And what it seems that they're trying to do is, like I said, the camera pulls out and you go, oh no, this is terrible. There are loads of them. And it sort of does that. But at the same time, at a stroke, it made them less frightening. Do you know what I mean? Because the idea that when there's like 4 of them, they can wreak all this havoc. It makes them terrifying monsters, you know what I mean? That would take on, just 4 of them would take on whole armies. That's frightening. The idea that they have to sort of amass an army of their own, individually they seem sort of less powerful. So that was a weird one for me, but I guess we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the terrifying thing for me is the sheer, it's like with any sort of zombie setup, is the sheer mass. It's the masses of them. But
that's what I mean, the reanimated humans do that job, don't they?
Yeah. So you know, how many generals do you need? There's kind of a whole row of them. So yeah, I feel like that was they just a bit of a slippage at the last minute there because it was, you know, I mean, trailers do ruin this stuff for you actually because
was that in the trailer?
Well, I know that you see, I will have seen this more than you, I suppose, having Sky.
Yeah.
That it's just the trailer has just been on every 10 minutes for about 3 months.
Right.
And you get the shot of the horses, you know, you get the shot of the horses' legs coming in. So you already, it's not a spoiler, but it's an image. It's kind of a minor spoiler because the image is in your head.
Yeah.
And you're not, you lose the capacity to be shocked by the image when it's back in its proper context. So they have to put something in the trailer, you know. Anyway, so they're there looking at the lights of Winterfell in the distance and the shit is on.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is, you know, if you're gonna that itself, that final image, because you can just pick out the lights and you get that feeling of like, oh shit, it's gonna happen. So it was, you know, basically a good ending, and it was a good run of scenes up to the end. Really, there's kind of a solid 10 minutes with a couple of other bits. I reckon. I don't know what sort of proportion. Maybe this is how we should like score things if we were gonna do that. It's like, what kind of proportion of it was decent?
Well,
or actively good.
Yeah, we've gone way off brand here, haven't we? Because we've just been saying nice things about this.
Well, I'm sure
all
when
the way
we
through,
only nice things. Well, yeah, but that's the thing is we have sworn. We have made a solemn oath to give credit where it's due, and there was a lot of credit due in this episode.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It wasn't an absolute classic, but it was pretty good. Yeah.
Which is, and like I said, better than I would have expected at this point. So.
I'm kind of knocked out actually by it's probably, there wasn't anything last season as good as this, was there? I don't think.
No. The thing is, I do want to go back. I have watched some of the last 2 seasons in preparation for this, but not all of it. So, but yeah, we should check this out. They do then have Florence and or the Machine do the song over the end credits. So, you know,
was that Flo?
No, nobody needed that, but you know, I'll forgive it.
Right.
So, what do you reckon? Worst moment of this episode? It's the giant's Tormund
milk.
Giant's Bants, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely horrible. Like, really, really undermines the character, but didn't even have the good grace to go, oh, well, you know, at least it was fun. It wasn't fun. It was just weird.
No, it wasn't fun for anyone. It was just really slightly upsetting.
Yeah.
Shitty callback of the week?
Lyanna Mormont is a walking shitty callback, isn't she? If you cut her in half, she's got the word shitty callback running through her like a stick of rock. No shade to the actress. I'm sure she's perfectly fine.
No, I think she's really good.
This is just stop. Please stop. Yeah.
Yeah, I would go for the Tyrion, 80 years old, belly full of wine, girl's mouth around his cock.
That's worse. That's worse than the Lyanna Mormont.
Yeah. That's pretty bad. Loudest yell of "for fuck's sake" at the screen. Again, I would say Tormund's giant milk story. Yeah. Although, actually, I actually did yell at the screen when Lyanna Mormont came on. So, you know, I'm picking on her now, aren't I? You've really got it. You've really got it from the saving grace of this episode.
It had a number of really good. The saving grace of this episode was Brian Cogman writing dialogue that wasn't completely stupid.
Yes.
Well done, lad. Thanks for that. We appreciate it. Yes.
We really do appreciate it. Best line for you? Again, a few to choose from.
Yeah, there's a bunch of good stuff. I liked that whole fuck tradition bit and everything that spills out of that. That was good. And like I said before, that's the moment when they remembered who that character was and wrote him properly. It's really good.
Yeah. I think I might go for I Hope We Win, because that was really nice.
Really, really disarming, isn't it? It's like it really knocks you off course a bit. Yeah, it's good.
Well, that's that for this week. Thank the gods. You can find all episodes at nightshatewatch.co.uk. We're also now on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, Blueberry, and of course SoundCloud. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/nightshatewatch, and our Twitter is @nightshatewatch. Just so long as you're aware, no debate will be entered into on any platform, because we're right. If you enjoyed this podcast, or at least hated it in a way that you found gratifying, please do like it, share it, say things about it. It's the nice thing to do, and it'll really help us out. If you loved it to the extent you'd like to buy us a drink, you can do that at coffee.com/nightshatewatch. There's also a handy button on our website, and we really appreciate that, as we're quite poor and sober. I'm Sarah B. That was John Tatlock. You shall never hear our like again.
And now our hate watch is ended.
Until next week. Bye! The Night's Hate Watch is produced by John Tatlock at johntatlockaudio.com. The music, The Reigns of Cassiomere, is by Matt Abysmal.
It's not true. It's not reflected in the plot in any sense. That's not where it's going. They just literally pulled this out their arses for this scene. And well, not literally out their arses. But, but
who knows what their process is, but yeah. It's a mysterious thing.